Listen, Riv, last couple of episodes, well, I should say last episode, quite clearly, you are the 90s savant on the show.
I've always been that.
I'm tired of that fucking glazing too. Oh, they just didn't watch Akeem. Riv is the savior of this podcast. I'm not going to air him out, but if only y'all fucking knew.
I'm not the biggest. I've watched the 90s. I'm a big fan of the 90s.
Of course, so have I.
Yeah,
fuck, I know who was good and who wasn't.
I can feel this conversation is about to get a little funny though, because I'm sure you've seen your brother in Christ, your Almighty Savior, God even take over God. You've seen him talk about the 90s and how he's
Kobe.
You've just seen him, kind of be just show his
he
maturity.
trashed it. He basically said, Anthony Edwards said that not a lot of guys back then were skilled, except Michael Jordan. They weren't really skilled like that.
Also said he didn't watch it, by the way.
And then Magic Johnson replied to him and said, I don't respond to people that haven't won an NBA championship.
Don't forget that.
No, he said high school too. He said college. He said just hasn't won in life. Yeah, he said all that.
This is the thing with
good on Magic.
No, Magic
Eat that shit, ho.
He stood on 10.
I think it's the worst when young players now that are supposed to be setting an example for the modern day basketball fan trash the older eras. I think the question that I was just asking myself a couple of days ago was, what's the cutoff point to when we just label a player uneligible to be able to translate in today's era? Because a lot of fans, they shit on the 80s and the 70s, and I think that's going really far back, but a lot of fans don't think that anybody or a lot of players from the 90s wouldn't be able to play today. Like Clyde Drexler, it wouldn't be that good. Or
that's dumb.
These other guys.
That's dumb.
And I think that in no other sport do we do this but basketball, and it kind of pisses me off. Hockey fans don't go around saying, oh, yeah, Wayne Gretzky, he wouldn't be shit today.
No, they call him the GOAT.
No. Wayne Gretzky is quite literally hockey Jesus.
Nobody says, oh, yeah, Dan Marino, he'd be the 17th best quarterback today. Nobody goes in other sports and diminishes legends quite like the NBA modern fan does. We don't go around saying, oh, yeah, Barry Sanders, he wouldn't be good today. He wouldn't be this, he wouldn't be that. But for the NBA, some reason, even when it comes to these all-time great players, they often get diminished. And I think it doesn't do anybody favors when the history of the game that fans should be learning about and appreciating is trashed in this way. And what Anthony Edwards said was very contradictory because he said he never watched it, but then he's speaking on something that he didn't watch and he's having very strong opinion on. And I think it exemplifies what every modern casual NBA fan is. They have never watched that era. They have never thought to watch a full game of that era, yet they have very strong opinions on players in that era. And I don't know, I don't think it's going to be something that's going to stop because the modern NBA fan has so much pride in today's game with how it's evolved with the spacing and the skill. And I think there is more skill today, but they think that the game has evolved so much that the 90s were like the ape ages of basketball.
Like if you drop Jalen Green in the 90s, he's Clyde Drexler.
Yeah, I think it's weird because I think now today's game, we're a lot more athletic. We're a lot more skilled in the average position. So like an average player in the NBA now is way more skilled than the average player in the 90s and the 80s. That's just evolution. It's going to happen like that over time, So it's no shame to the game. I do think it's a little bit of a devil's advocate thing because I think also old players do tend to shit on these new players. They do have their fair share of saying, oh, this era is soft.
Shaq.
And Shaq, he's got a few dudes that can really just say something and be like, no, I know what I'm talking about. In just terms of physicality, but they do tend to do it both ways. But I agree with you. Just the way Ant-Man went about it was just stupid. Like I don't know who he does tend to have that where he just says what's on his mind. He's gonna do whatever he wants, and I respect that about him. But to say Michael Jordan was the only one with skill, and then you brought up Kobe, and then to say, oh, but I never watched it, doesn't make sense because before Michael Jordan, there was Julius Erving. Even before Joel Embiid, there was Hakeem. There was, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Before there was a 6'10" Ben Simmons running around with no jumper. What do you think Magic Johnson was doing in the 80s? He was literally changing the game. Before there was the Joker, we had Larry Bird. So it's like, it's kind of thinking the 80s and 90s, there wasn't no skill when I can name about 30 to 40 players that had the same type of skills that we have in today's game. They just either lack the athleticism or we just lack the depth, which comes with the evolution of the game. But Ant-Man is just showing his youthfulness. He's showing his immaturity at times. He's showing his just brash way of just saying what's on his mind. I do respect it at times when he does do it, but this is just like you mentioned, a prime example of either people really young or younger than him that just don't understand that, you have the 80s, you have the 90s, the 70s, the pioneers of the games, the guys who kind of paved the way for today's game. You have to kind of show that level of respect or acknowledge that these players were great in their own right. Clyde, MJ, Gary Payton, Hakeem, Dave Rob. They weren't just scrubs that didn't have, like, I'm sure you can go look at the 12th man on the 1991 Charlotte Hornets or something like that, an expansion team. Of course, you're not going to find the same player that's on this team now. Of course not. But to the top players, the guys who made the top 75 team, the guys who were Hall of Famers, Charles Barkley, Steve Nash, there's like so much skill with these like players before. I just think people need to really just jump on YouTube, and it's really not hard to find a 1997 game from the finals or the ECF or the WCF. Just go on YouTube, watch a game. You'll understand how the game was played. You'll understand how different the rules was in terms of what you could do, what you can do. Like in the 60s, you weren't allowed to carry the ball. So it didn't give you the same, and I'm not saying he can do what Kyrie does.
Yeah, but always fucking dunk.
Yeah, like, yo, bro, there was no three-point line. Like, it just didn't give you the same creativity or the same, art to kind of go out there and be Kyrie Irving and be shifty or even be Rod Strickland from the 90s and get busy. You just didn't have that same creativity. So it's like, of course, the game is going to evolve. We're now seeing dudes like Victor Wembanyama. That's a different type of species. Like Zion Williamson a couple years ago, who's just a different specimen of human. But not to say we've seen Zion before, but it was a player like Larry Johnson that kind of had similar vibes to him. So it's like we've always seen these type of players. There's just new players coming up, and I think people need to just be more intertwined with the 80s and the 90s and even the 70s. Just even some people don't even know the early 2000s. Like, some people don't understand the dead ball era, like in 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. Like, half of the people don't even know who Ben Wallace is, which is a shame, and just the fact that people just don't understand. Like, people, I literally was having this conversation about Ray Allen versus Klay Thompson the other day, and people legitimately did not know Ray Allen averaged 25 points a game. It was like astonishing to me. Like, they were so confused at what he did, and they was like, oh, I didn't know he had this much athleticism and he can go to the rim. Like, it's just even that. Like, Ray Allen's probably an up-to-date NBA player, and you only know Boston. So,
again, what you fail to realize, unfortunately,
kids.
There's a lot of kids that watch this show, and a lot of kids that use X or Twitter. I can't believe I really just said X. I should be shunned, honestly. But these are young kids that really don't have the drive and the love for the game to go and do their own homework. Some do, and I respect them. Listen, I'll give it to John. John's a young kid who decided that he loves the game of basketball, and he goes back because he's a basketball historian. Not everybody has that same drive and love for the game like John does. Listen, me, Joel, you, we have a podcast. We have to do our due diligence to go learn about the history of the game. But again, becomes a certain time with ignorance when you go and you look back. And I feel like even you sometimes have a little bit of ignorance when talking about like a Wilt Chamberlain or just guys in that era, where Wilt Chamberlain for his era was an alien. He was the Victor Wembanyama of his era because he was doing things that no other player could do. And in his era, he was the most dominant. He was the most consistent. But again, as evolution goes on, and of course we understand that his skill set may be not the same as a Shaquille, a Nikola Jokic, but for what he did in his time, it was amazing. It was something that nobody had ever seen before up until, of course, his time. So I try not to carry too much weight over, oh, he's doing it in the 2020s, the 2010s, as opposed to looking at it in the 1990s, but also understanding that when you talk about role players, I feel like that's exactly where I wanted to go. You mentioned the 12th man, but you can make it a little bit more narrow than that. Talking about the 6th, 7th, 8th guys off the bench, I think that's definitely different when you talk about this brand of basketball that they see now, the different levels of players that are in the league now. That's fair, but Dennis Rodman would be a star in today's game. He's still a star in the 90s game. You still have those hard-nosed, like Patrick Ewing would translate perfectly in today's NBA. I have no problem with that. Arvydas Sabonis would come in here, and he would be a dominant player in today's game also. There's certain skill sets that you can see translate, but there's also certain types of games that come in and translate because hard-nosed hardworking individuals naturally translate. So to me, Anthony Edwards showed some hard-headedness, showed some ignorance, and I'm sure he knows that now. And Magic absolutely killed him because Magic is a pioneer of the game. Magic is one of the top 4, top 5 best players that this game's ever seen, and that will never change because in his era, he saved basketball. In the 80s, him and Larry Bird saved basketball, and for that, they should be cherished and polarized for the rest of time. And hopefully they will, and hopefully we don't have people like Anthony Edwards hard-headed to the fact of there was better players than just Michael Jordan. You don't think that there wouldn't be an NBA if not for a Magic, if not for a Larry Bird, if not for a Kareem, of course, if not for a Michael Jordan. But Michael Jordan had to go up against a guy that we don't talk about, had to go up against John Stockton, had to go up against Charles Barkley, had to go up against Clyde. Never went up against Hakeem, unfortunately, but Hakeem won 2 championships in that era. And then came Tim Duncan. It's like, yeah, the guy on Player's Choice talking about Anthony Davis is just a better offensive player than Tim Duncan. You couldn't have done yourself the favor of going quick Google, quick YouTube. Let me look up Tim Duncan highlights. Even though it's not the sexiest, why is he a top 7 player all time? Let me get schooled and hit to the idea of why people hold these guys in such high regard. Sometimes it's just not that hard.
I think just the way NBA is talked compared to NFL is just completely different. We've had this discussion before, Joel, where for the NBA, everything is player focused. Everything is player A better than player B. Like we had like top shooting guard lists, right? Everyone does shooting guards and small forwards and point guards and all of this stuff. And like we're having real debates over Tyrese Halliburton versus Ja Morant. Everyone gets animated and all upset. And like the NFL, like when is anyone over here arguing? Like we're really getting debates over Justin Jefferson versus CeeDee Lamb or Justin. You know what I mean? Like for the NBA, it's always looking back and seeing what a player does. Like I can't imagine. There's been 1,000 times where when Kawhi got hurt and Paul George those 2 games, but then he missed the free throw. Like there's always different times where specific moments in a player's career for the NBA consistently gets brought up, and that is used to either make that player look better or make that player look worse. We never talk in the NFL. Yo, Kirk Cousins, when he was on Washington, remember that game he had like 300 yards in the playoffs and won to debate something against him like 3 years ago against Matt Ryan. Like the debates that are had in the NBA are always so player driven, and the traits of the players are always compared so closely compared to the NFL. Like most of the time we're talking about the NFL, it's usually team based or at most quarterback based, but we're never having real debates about like, is Sauce Gardner, can he ever be like what Darrelle Revis was? And Darrelle's like, nah, man, Darrelle Revis is the best to ever do it. Those debates happen in the NBA, like we just had with LeBron and Hakeem, where people really feel a certain way about these 2 individual players. So I feel like when Ant Edwards is having that conversation, it's different than any other sport, because in these other sports, we're not comparing player to player, at least for the NFL's sake, because we usually talk about the best teams or 1 or 2 of the best quarterbacks. In NBA, we get into debates over like the Derek White, Christian Wood shit. Like there's no comp in the NFL we have ever done, I don't think, that compares to that level of like really breaking down at the time like the 4th or 5th or 6th best option on a team. Like we don't break down slot cornerbacks or the second linebacker on a team like we do in the NBA. So I feel like a lot of the individual skill sets just get nitpicked by certain players. Of course, the Anthony Edwards comment was completely different, but I just think when I look at how we debate NFL, it's usually a lot about teams and quarterbacks. The NBA, everyone gets debated. 6 men get debated. DeAndre Ayton gets debated. We just don't have those same type of conversations in the NFL, and it's just weird that like so much of the time we bring up like playoff moments from like 5 years ago to talking like compared to today's NBA, although it's like the same era, of course, and everything like that. It's just the history of the NBA from what I've seen on this podcast, right? Because I didn't consume like going on Pick a Side and everything. I wasn't consuming as much basketball content as NFL content. But now that I'm in the trenches in basketball in here and watching everything else, it's just always like at the neck when it comes player to player, when it comes to the 50th versus 55th best player in the NBA, that in the NFL, you just don't see that happen at all.
I mean, we had a Tyquan Thorne versus Romeo Dobbs.
We did. Right? We got into it. You can. To me, it
doesn't like this. The NBA shit happens on damn near every podcast.
But it makes sense. It makes sense because basketball is so individualized. Because again, LeBron James can match up with Jason Tatum. He can match up with Kevin Durant. He can match up with Steph Curry. He can match up with Tim Duncan and Nikola Jokic. He can do that because basketball is 5-on-5. It's smaller. With football, of course, with football, it's so hard to get into those unless you're talking about a team.
But we don't even talk about like
quarterback.
Mahomes versus Brett Favre, Mahomes versus like we don't even have like all-time debates about these guys.
That's
It's
the
just
Mahomes
like
players.
we just know like the dudes in the 80s and the 90s, Marino, Aikman, all those guys. We kind of realized like what they were. For their time, they were great. Most of those players don't stack up today to today's league because we know it's a different league. Like Dan Marino is probably like the one exception, but look at like Troy Aikman's numbers. He'd be like the 20th best quarterback in the NFL right now.
Even Joe Montana, the guy won hella Super Bowls. His numbers aren't sexy at all.
I think there's a lot of pride when NBA fans feel like the NBA is the only sport that has progressed with its rule changes, because the main argument or point that is used is the reason why a 90s player won't translate today is because the game is played in a different way. And I think that's true to an extent. There are some players that will translate better than others and worse than others. That's just what it is. But in the NFL, I mean, the same thing has kind of happened. I mean, we don't run the ball nearly as much as we used to. Nowadays, a defensive change that's happening right in front of our eyes is that NFL teams are now playing a lot of big nickel. You used to play base personnel, which you would keep like two bigger body linebackers on the field, and now big nickel is having a safety who can play the role of a linebacker and a safety, so you're not giving up or susceptible to the pass while also defending the run. And the rise in cover 3 with Dan Quinn in Seattle, the rise in two high defenses that has essentially neutralized Russell Wilson's career, because the rise in too high has led to his decline as well. We just don't go back in history and say, oh yeah, Champ Bailey, he wouldn't be that good.
You know what's crazy about that? Because I want to dive a little bit into that. You said that now in the NFL, you guys are more pass heavy. But I think with NBA fans, the thing they do is they don't think they players before can translate. But like if you look at grabbing an NFL player, Barry Sanders, right? You grab Barry Sanders. Even though y'all don't run the ball as much as you used to, I guarantee if you pluck Barry Sanders on a team, the whole offense is going to completely revolve around him. Teams are going to start stacking the box again. They're going to change their game plan for him because he was that type of great player. I feel like NBA players act like, well, shit, if you just grab David Robinson, he isn't going to translate. No, if you grab David Robinson, you put him on a team, you put him with this type of training, with this type of medicine, and this NBA, let him adapt. Teams are going to start game planning and starting to figure shit out towards him. The offenses are going to be built around him.
Imagine if he had a 3-point shot.
And they just act like NBA players from before just won't come in. They can't translate. They don't have the work ethic. They don't have the skill. They're just like, nah, like they're gonna come in here and just gonna be like fucking a regular type of player. And I think if you're that great, if you are that great, you are that amazing, you are one of the 50 best players in the world. It doesn't matter what era it is. You have that type of skill level. You are going to translate any single era given the right training, given the right adjustment. That's the same way how high school players and college players, they come into the NBA, they adjust. You adjust, and if you're one of them ones, you have it. We've seen it with MJ. We've seen it with LeBron. We've seen it with Magic. We've seen it with Bird. We've seen it with Kareem. If you are one of them, I mean, of course, we got the outliers like Steph Curry and shit like that, but even Kevin Durant, Tim Duncan, when you are one of them ones, Shaq, you come in, there is no adjustment. You come in and you are a top dude from day one. And I feel like NBA players, like NFL, like I mentioned, from what I've seen, y'all don't get into we may get into Jettas versus Tyreek, or like Josh Allen versus Lamar type of thing, but it's never no legit passion, because at the end of the day, it is really big team oriented. You do need 52 guys to be on their A game to win a football game. As for NBA, two of your best players can just perform at an excellent rate, i.e. 2016 finals, LeBron and Kyrie, and you end up winning the damn thing. So it's very interesting conversation for sure.
You know, it's like, because a simplified version of just the conversation is that in football, while things have changed from a schematic standpoint, throwing the ball is still throwing the ball. Catching the ball is still catching the ball. Running the ball is still running the ball. Yeah. With basketball, there have been a lot of rules that are implemented, but dribbling the ball outside of you're talking about the 70s, 60s, when they weren't able to carry, dribbling the ball post 95-ish, 90s, it's the same. Shooting, they didn't do it at the volley, but they had shooters back then.
Hit them threes.
It's just the skill of playing basketball is still very much the same. It's just how it's played is different. But for some reason, a lot of people think
Is the skill the same?
I think so.
no, like the
skills needed.
the skills necessary to play
I think
basketball.
if you look at bigs before, they're much more skilled than bigs now. But I think even guards before, guards like Isaiah Thomas, guards like Kevin Johnson, guards like Gary Payton, I think they're really skilled.
Who's more skilled, Joel Embiid or Patrick Ewing?
Joel Embiid.
Joel Embiid.
Who's more skilled, Anthony Davis or Patrick Ewing?
Anthony Davis.
On the block, Patrick Ewing.
Offensively, just
I think
more
because
skilled.
of the shooting, you would say AD. But I think like if you're just talking big men, because they're different. Like a 90s big man isn't the same as
I'll
a
tell you
now
what,
big man.
80s post work is good.
I think it's good, but I think Patrick Ewing on the block.
Yeah.
I would go Patrick
Fair
Ewing.
enough.
Like
He
they're
was a
just
big body.
They're just different. Those are back to the basket. Like AD was never really a traditional back to the basket big. He's really a 4. He's never really been that. Like these are legit back to the basket, different type of same thing like Embiid. Embiid is a back to the basket type of big. You give him the ball, you give him the post, he either faces up or he goes to use his back and he goes to work. That's kind of like what we used to have. Even like in our semi era, you had the Al Jeffersons who were back to the basket. You had those type of bigs that were pre 2020. It's just like it's just a different type of skill that's required in 2020 that you need in 1995. I wouldn't say like the skill level between the top guys is a gap. It's really that, like we talked about, that middle to good to great type era, like the Chris Middleton's before, and then like Mark Aguirre before. Like I wish I could, yeah, but like that's the breakup line.
But even like a lot of the 2000s players that we respect, they played in the 90s.
They did.
They played a good portion of the 90s. Like Kevin Garnett
He played
in the 90s. I think he was drafted in 96, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I played in
He
the 90s.
played against those other players, and they gave him the business. And Kevin Garnett translated to the 2000s, and I think there's no question that we think that he translate now. Well, those older players faced off against these players that we respect from the 2000s, but for some reason, the 90s is like the cutoff point. Oh, yeah, if he was there, he can't really play.